In the dead of night, under the flickering lights of a bustling Chicago street, a single dad named Ethan Miller faced the choice that most of us pray we never have to make. His boss, Amelia Hartman, the sharp, no-nonsense executive who ran the luxury hotel where he worked as a janitor, staggered out of a nearby bar, drunk, disoriented, and on the verge of a very public fall that could destroy everything she'd built. Her designer coat was slipping off one shoulder, her heels clicking unsteadily on the wet pavement, and a small crowd of late-night stragglers was already starting to pull out their phones. One wrong move, and tomorrow's headlines would be merciless. Ethan could have kept walking, head down, minding his own exhausted business after another long shift. But he didn't. Instead, he stepped forward with quiet strength, guided her away from prying eyes, and protected her dignity when she had none left to give. What happened next? A simple act of kindness that rewrote 2 lives forever, and proved that one moment of decency can ripple out farther than any of us imagine. If stories of real human connection and the quiet power of kindness move you, please take a second to subscribe to, hit the like button, and drop a comment below with the word, kindness wins, if you believe small acts matter. It helps us keep bringing these heartfelt tales straight to you every week. Ethan Miller was the kind of man America is built on, steady, hardworking, and invisible to most people rushing through their days. At 38, he'd been raising his 8-year-old daughter, Lily, alone ever since his wife passed away from cancer 3 years earlier. The grief still sat heavy in his chest some nights, but he pushed through for Lily. Mornings meant packing her lunch, braiding her hair, and walking her to school before his shift at the downtown Grand Meridian Hotel. Evenings were spent mopping marble floors, emptying trash in suites that cost more per night than he made in a week, and dreaming about a better life for his little girl. He never complained. Kindness wasn't something he talked about, it was just how he lived. His own mother had taught him that a man's worth isn't measured by the size of his paycheck but by the size of his heart. So when he saw Amelia that rainy October night, swaying dangerously near the curb, he didn't hesitate. He'd recognized her instantly. Amelia Hartman was the hotel's general manager, sharp suits, sharper expectations, and a reputation for being tough but fair. She was in her mid-40s, successful in every way the world admired, yet something in her eyes always looked a little lonely, like the weight of running a 5-star operation had left no room for anything else. Tonight, though, the professional armor was gone. She'd clearly had one too many after a brutal day of board meetings and staff cuts. A group of tourists was already whispering and pointing. Ethan gently touched her elbow, his voice low and calm. "Ma'am, it's Ethan from the night crew. Let me get you somewhere safe." She blinked at him through mascara-smudged eyes, too out of it to argue. He flagged a cab, helped her in, and gave the driver the address to her upscale apartment a few blocks away. But when they arrived, she could barely stand. Ethan paid the fare himself, money he didn't have to spare, and walked her up the 3 flights of stairs, one careful step at a time. He didn't go inside her place. Instead, he sat on the hallway floor outside her door until he heard her breathing steady into sleep. He left a bottle of water and some aspirin on her welcome mat, along with a simple note. "You're okay. Rest up, Ethan." Then he walked the 2 miles home in the rain, soaked and bone-tired, thinking only of Lily sleeping peacefully in their small apartment. He expected nothing. That's what made his kindness so pure. No promotion, no pat on the back, no gossip to spread. He figured Amelia wouldn't even remember. People in power often forgot the little guys who cleaned up their messes, literally and figuratively. The next morning, Ethan showed up for his shift at 6 a.m. like always, pushing his cleaning cart down the gleaming hallways. Lily had drawn him a quick picture of a superhero before school, and he kept it folded in his pocket for luck. Around 10 o'clock, his radio crackled. "Ethan, report to the executive office immediately." His stomach dropped. Was he about to lose his job for stepping out of line? Heart pounding, he knocked on the heavy oak door. Amelia was waiting behind her desk, looking polished and composed in a crisp navy blazer, but her eyes were softer than he'd ever seen. She stood up the moment he entered. "Ethan." she said, voice catching slightly. I remember everything from last night. He shifted uncomfortably, ready to apologize if he'd overstepped. But instead of firing him or brushing it off, she walked around the desk and took his hands in hers. You could have left me there. You could have let those people film me and post it online. You could have taken advantage or told the staff what happened. But you didn't. You protected me like I mattered, as a person, not just your boss. Tears welled in her eyes. I've spent years building walls, climbing the ladder, thinking success meant never needing anyone. Last night reminded me what it feels like to be human, and to be seen. What followed was the conversation that changed everything. Ethan, never one to brag, simply shrugged and said, anyone decent would have done the same. But Amelia pressed gently, asking about his life. He told her about Lily, how she wanted to be an artist someday, how their tiny 2-bedroom apartment felt like a palace because they had each other, how he worked extra shifts so she could stay in dance class. He mentioned the medical bills still lingering from his wife's illness, and the dream he'd buried long ago of going back to school for a hospitality management degree so he could give Lily more opportunities. Amelia listened without interrupting, something she rarely did in meetings. By the end, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled, the first real, warm smile he'd ever seen from her. Ethan, you didn't just help me last night. You reminded me why I got into this business in the first place, to create places where people feel safe and valued. Starting today, you're no longer on the janitorial staff. I'm promoting you to assistant night manager, with a raise that covers your bills and then some. And I'm personally sponsoring your tuition for that degree program at the community college, online classes so you can still be there for Lily. Ethan stood there stunned, tears threatening behind his eyes. It wasn't just the money or the title. It was the dignity she handed back to him, the belief that his quiet kindness had been seen and repaid in the best way possible. Over the next few months, the changes unfolded like a beautiful surprise. Ethan aced his first classes, coming home to help Lily with her homework and share stories about hotel operations that made her giggle. Amelia started joining them for occasional Saturday lunches at a neighborhood diner, simple grilled cheese and milkshakes that felt like family. She opened up about her own loneliness, how the pressure of being the boss had cost her relationships and left her reaching for a drink too often. Ethan's steady presence helped her find healthier ways to cope. She even volunteered at Lily's school art fair, watching the little girl's eyes light up when she saw her dad's new boss cheering the loudest. Word of what happened quietly spread among the hotel staff, not as gossip, but as inspiration. Other employees began holding doors for guests a little longer, checking in on tired coworkers, and offering small helps without expecting thanks. One housekeeper started a kindness jar in the break room, where people dropped notes about good deeds they'd witnessed. The entire culture shifted, one gentle ripple at a time. For Ethan, the biggest gift wasn't the promotion, it was watching Lily thrive. She painted a giant thank you card for Amelia that hung in the executive office, a colorful reminder that kindness always circles back. In the end, that rainy night in Chicago wasn't about saving a boss from embarrassment. It was about two people, both carrying invisible burdens, finding each other through decency and respect. Ethan's single, selfless choice showed that kindness doesn't need fanfare or reward to matter, it simply shows up when it's needed most. Amelia's gratitude turned that moment into lasting change, proving that when we lift others, we lift ourselves too. In a fast-paced world where it's easy to scroll past someone else's struggle or look the other way, stories like this remind us that we all have the power to be someone's quiet hero. So the next time you see a stranger stumbling, a neighbor struggling, or even a coworker having a tough day, remember Ethan standing in the rain. Choose kindness. It might not make the evening news, but it will rewrite someone's tomorrow, and maybe your own. Spread it generously, live it daily, and watch how the world gets a little brighter. Because in the end, the smallest acts of decency have the biggest impact. Thank you for watching, and go make someone's day better today. Kindness always wins.